Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're tackling a real giant of American letters, maybe the giant, Mark Twain.
Absolutely.
Most of us know him as, the funny guy, the writer of these classic American books. But the actual man, Samuel Langhorne Clemens, his life was, well, it was much more complicated, more highs and lows, more light, and definitely darker than the popular image suggests.
Yeah, and that complexity is exactly what Ron Chernow gets into in his huge new biography. And when we say huge, we mean it. It's like 1,200 pages.
Wow.
Yeah, based on just incredible archives, thousands of letters, stuff nobody's published before. Chernow really gets inside Clemens' head beyond just the famous stories.
Okay, so our mission here for you, the listener, is to sort of pull out the big takeaways from this massive work. We're diving into the real Sam Clemens, the man who basically invented Mark Twain, built this huge literary celebrity, but then kept getting tripped up by his own ambition, his own failures.
And what's really striking is Chernow doesn't just look at him as a writer. He places Twain right in the middle of American history. So the biography isn't just about him. It's about the whole era. Westward expansion, industrialization, kicking into high gear, America starting to flex its muscles overseas. Twain was right there watching it, writing about it, even part of it.
Right, he kind of embodied that period.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start at the beginning then. The classic Twain story starts with the Mississippi River, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sam Clemens, born 1835, all he wanted was to be a steamboat pilot.
Mm-hmm. Totally obsessed with it. It wasn't just a job back then. It was prestigious, highly skilled, paid well. It really formed his early identity.
But then the Civil War happens.
Exactly. The war just shut down river traffic. It forced him to completely change course, ended his piloting career, and pushed him out west to the Nevada territory. And that shift, from the settled South to the wild frontier, that was really where the writer started to emerge.
And this is where the celebrity part really kicks off. He gets a job at a newspaper out there.
Yeah, and his writing immediately stands out. It wasn't dry reporting. It was sharp, funny, kind of brash. He figured out pretty quickly that getting noticed was valuable.
So he wasn't just a talented writer who happened to get famous.
No, Chernow makes a strong case that Clemens actively built his fame. He carefully created the Mark Twain persona, the name, the look, everything. He chased the spotlight. He understood, maybe before others did, that in this new industrial age, an author needed to be a brand, not just a name on a book.
That's fascinating. So was he like America's first manufactured celebrity? Cynical marketing, or was it genuine?
Probably a bit of both. It's complex, but the lecture tours, for instance, they weren't just a way to make extra money. They were key to his whole image management. He toured constantly, perfecting his act, making sure the witty, drawling Mark Twain character was the same everywhere.
And it worked.
Oh, absolutely. Chernow calls him the biggest literary personality that America has produced. A huge part of that was because he was just so good at selling himself, his humor, his whole persona.
And that fame allowed him to settle down, right?
Yeah.
In Hartford, Connecticut, big house, living large, and that's when he wrote the big ones, Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn.
Yes, his most productive time as a novelist. But he was doing more than just writing stories for kids, even then. He really became arguably the nation's most important political commentator.
A pundit.
Yeah, a pundit. He had this amazing knack for taking all the confusing stuff going on in America, the good, the bad, the hypocrisy, the tragedy, and sort of distilling it. He used humor, but there was often a real bite, real satire underneath.
You mentioned the nation's sins.
Yeah.
What kind of things did he tackle later on specifically?
Well, especially later in his life, his commentary got much darker, much more critical. He was really outspoken against American imperialism, for example. The war in the Philippines really set him off. He saw it as a betrayal of American ideals. That early humorist started sounding more like a very angry moralist.
And he kept that public face going through relentless work. We know he lectured, but Chernow really shows the scale of it. It wasn't just a few dates.
No, it was practically nonstop. A never-ending tour, as Chernow puts it. He went almost everywhere in the world. He was basically performing and creating content constantly, long before we had the media to make that easy.
And that connects to his personal life, doesn't it? That manic energy.
It absolutely does. That same sort of boundless enthusiasm and, frankly, belief in his own genius that made his writing so lively. It also led him into some truly disastrous personal and financial decisions. He's a man of huge contradictions.
Let's dig into those. The money side, especially. He made a fortune, but he was also incredibly reckless.
Totally reckless. He jumped into all sorts of risky business ventures. He loved new technology, new ideas, thought he could make another fortune outside of writing.
But he wasn't a good businessman.
Terrible, according to Chernow, an inept investor. He got completely obsessed with gadgets and schemes. The most famous one, the one that really broke him, was the page typesetting machine.
The Page Compositor. I've heard of it, but what was the deal with that machine? Why was it such a disaster?
It was this incredibly complicated automatic typesetting machine, a real marvel of engineering for its time, supposed to change printing forever. Twain poured a fortune into it, hundreds of thousands, which was just an insane amount back then.
And he just wouldn't give up on it?
Nope. He kept throwing good money after bad, convinced it was the future. His pride, his ego, wouldn't let him admit he'd backed the wrong horse. He funded it right up until it completely bankrupted him.
Bankrupt. The great Mark Twain. What happened then?
Well, the consequence was pretty severe. He and his family had to basically go into exile in Europe for 9 years to save money, regroup, and start paying off those massive debts. Think about that. The voice of America forced to live abroad because of a failed invention. It kind of mirrored the whole boom and bust craziness of the Gilded Age itself.
Things got even darker personally, didn't they? It wasn't just about the money.
No, sadly not. The last part of his life was just filled with tragedy. He lost his wife, Olivia, who he adored, and then 2 of his daughters died relatively young, Susie and Jean. It was devastating.
The man who made the world laugh became, well, consumed by grief.
Utterly consumed. And Chernow looks at this period very honestly. He points out that Twain's behavior became more eccentric, more cynical, and that sometimes this hid, quote, darker forces at play.
What were those darker forces? Just the grief or something more?
It was complicated. The grief was immense, obviously, but it also seemed to fuel this deep philosophical pessimism that shows up in his later writing. He became really critical of, well, everything: humanity, God, society. He started seeing people as fundamentally foolish and flawed. The humor was still there sometimes, but it became much sharper, almost bitter. It was the tool of someone deeply angry at the world.
That shift from the humorist to this darker moralist feels really relevant when we talk about race, which is so central to his most famous book.
Absolutely, and Chernow really emphasizes this point. He argues Twain was probably the most important white writer of his time to really, truly grapple with slavery and its legacy. He didn't ignore it, which was pretty remarkable given where he came from and the times he lived in.
And Huckleberry Finn is still so controversial today, right? Read everywhere, but also banned in some schools because of the language, the themes. How does Chernow shed light on Twain's own views on race? Did they change?
Yes, Chernow uses all those letters and private writings to show Twain's views definitely evolved. He started with the prejudices of his Missouri upbringing, but he moved significantly beyond them. He became a strong supporter of civil rights, even secretly paid for black students to go to college.
Wow, you saw that.
Yeah. So Huck Finn with the character Jim, it's complicated, it was controversial then, it is now. But Chernow presents it as Twain's honest attempt to confront the massive hypocrisy at the heart of America, a nation preaching freedom while built on slavery.
So ultimately, the biography really forces you to see the whole person, the good and the bad, not just the Mark Twain caricature.
Exactly. Chernow gives us the complex, contradictory, suffering man, as he calls him. A man whose life and career were completely tangled up with America's own struggles, recovering from the Civil War, figuring out what it was becoming. It's like the man and the country sort of grew up, messed up, and matured together.
It's been an incredible dive into this material. We've traced Sam Clemens from, that hopeful kid on the Mississippi through creating this massive Mark Twain celebrity, becoming this literary giant, then the disastrous business ventures, the crushing personal losses.
Yeah, it's a huge story. And Chernow's book, it's just this masterful piece of work. It brings Twain fully to life, with sympathy, but without making excuses for him. It really shows the power of his words and how much he shaped how America saw itself.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener. Twain himself was really skeptical about biographies. He once said they only capture the clothes and buttons of a man, not the real person inside. So considering everything Chernow uncovered, the bankruptcy, the grief, those darker forces, do you think this biography finally gets past the clothes and buttons? Does it capture the real mind and heart, warts and all, of America's most essential writer? It kind of leaves you wondering, doesn't it?